they try to triumph against evil against all odds. Now, I've already covered what I believe to be the best of the best in the hives of scum and villainy. So for my 800 sub special, it's time to showcase what I believe to be the best of the best in terms of heroism. Demonstrating selflessness, putting others above their own, trying to save the day, and kicking bad guy butt. Thanks again everyone for all your support. With that, let's get the showcase of heroics started. Just hear me out on this one. Genshin Impact is a free-to-play live service gacha game. While I have grown fed up with doing too much for too little, the one thing that I think is consistently strong with this game is its character rating. So there's one in this game who has managed to charm her way onto this list. She may be tiny, but she is mighty. The Dendro Archon herself, Nahida, takes the number 10 spot. Now I know some of you are probably thinking, what? A big thing for me when it comes to defining a character as a hero is perseverance in the face of adversity, and Nahida has that in spades. She was locked up for 500 years and could only see the world through her dream. Most of who were supposed to be her people didn't want her as their Archon, on a scale of ignoring her existence to straight up wanting her to die, as she served as a very painful reminder that their previous beloved gods had died. I think any normal person would go insane and tell everyone to buzz off, leaving the Samira people to destroy themselves. Not Nahida though. She's tried to save everyone, to the best of her ability, trying very hard to live up to her predecessor. She even helped the main character go up against a giant mech to save her nation Sumeru. This continued outside the main story quest too, as when Apep, the Dendro Dragon, was discovered to be very ill, Nahida took it upon herself to try and cure her, even at the cost of herself. Even though Apep didn't want her help because she is the Dendro Archon, she's also had to make some tough choices before, even knowing that's not what she personally wanted. This level of selflessness, the willingness to put others above herself time and time again, even knowing that she probably won't be thanked for it, still disliked for existing or received nothing in return. I can only call this heroism. With her immense kindness and almost complete lack of animosity, she just wants to be the best Archon she can be. Truly an admirable quality. So yeah, I consider the tiny grass lily a hero. She totally deserves this number 10 spot. So great job, Nahida. You charmed your way onto this list and charmed me into pulling 3 copies of you and your signature weapon. Now it is time to move on to more acts of valor. Since I already talked about this show's villain on my top 10 villains list, why not put its main hero on this list? Lino from Thundercats 2011 takes the number 9 spot. If this show had gotten a season 2, I think it would have gone down as one of the best reboots of an 80s property ever. And the main hero is no exception to this. Not that the 80s version of Lino isn't good either. It's just for this particular list, I prefer the 2011 version in terms of what I like to see in heroes. Why? Well, I prefer this Lino's growth into becoming a hero, as he definitely doesn't start out that way. After his kingdom of Thundera fell, he was angry, brash, impulsive, focusing on avenging his father the king instead of being one himself, which is totally understandable, as he probably felt like he had the whole weight of the world thrown on his shoulders all in a single night. He definitely did not have anyone's respect. Instead, he had to earn it, even from his own brother. Through all that pain and hardship though, Lino grew up. He learned how to cherish the people around him, and value the times that they all had, becoming more valiant and strategic in their fight against Mum-Ra. Although Lino continued to screw up throughout the course of the season, he still continued to learn, and his perseverance impressed me, even getting some of his enemies to leave Mum-Ra's side. I wish I could put 2011 Lino higher on this list, but alas, his hero's journey was never completed. If season 2 had happened, I would have liked to see Lino unite all these different factions against Mum-Ra and kick his butt, save and get pussy. And officially being coronated and succeeding his father as King of Thundera. Sadly, this shall be a story with no ending, forever never receiving the final chapters. Damn you, Cartoon Network! Now then, next hero. It's time to go from the world of fantasy to a world of mystery. His name is Holmes. Sherlock Holmes. The world's greatest detective, Sherlock Holmes, takes the number 8 spot. A fictional character created by Arthur Conan Doyle, this detective has gone on to receive widespread acumen in the public domain, his adventures receiving tens of thousands of adaptations. Versions that stand out to me as being good entertainment are the Robert Downey Jr. movies, much more action-packed, and Sherlock himself being a bit more bizarre. The Ace Attorney version, with 2 letters of his name conveniently swapped, who uses theatrics to come up with wild deductions and guide the protagonist to the truth, and has a steampunk lolly as his Watson stand-in. Cute. There's also this 1985 movie called Young Sherlock Holmes, which details the first case of Holmes and Watson. Reading about it seems like a neat movie. I'd like to check it out sometime, if I could find where to watch it. And then there's, well, Sherlock Gnomes, which is about Sherlock Holmes as a gnome. He solves mystery with Romeo and Juliet, and yes, they aren't the gnome versions of Romeo and Juliet. Moriarty is also here too as a discount cereal mascot. The movie is just as dumb as it sounds, but it's, well, dumb entertainment. It's fun. Back on topic, nothing can quite beat the OG for me. Mostly because he is more so of a regular person than the more eccentric portrayals. Sure, he is definitely quite intelligent and has a high IQ. However, it's not as if he was born this way. He read up on everything that he could, so he could properly analyze anyone or anything that came his way. What makes him a hero though, despite his eccentricities and general love of mystery solving? Well, it's because he never turns anyone away who asks for his help, no matter how absurd their tales may seem. Such as if someone had thought that someone was killed, but the death cannot be explained and there's no evidence to suggest it. Most people would drop it there, but not Sherlock. He listens to their stories in earnest, trying to ease their minds, seeing if they're being truthful and if there's actually foul play afoot. Then Sherlock immediately gets to work, unraveling these strange mysteries and exposing these culprits. So while he does require payment for his services, after all, a guy's gotta live somehow, right? All the while being bored and glum until the next case rolls around. If he didn't care about the people he helped at all, he wouldn't check up on them from time to time, nor read their letters about how they're doing after Sherlock helped them. So while Sherlock's exterior might be atypical to that of a typical hero, his interior is that of heroic. Which is why I think Sherlock Holmes deserves its number 8 spot. Now let's crack the case of lucky number 7. I realize I've talked about this anime quite a lot, and I will continue to talk about it on this channel. As Kill la Kill is one of my favorite anime of all time. It follows Ryoko Matoi, who is on the hunt for her father's killer, who happens upon a sentient school uniform named Senkitsu. She uses him to transform and fight people, on her quest for answers. She is the main character of this shindig, but not here on this top 10 list. That instead goes to her, well, spoiler for a decade-old anime if anyone cares, her big sister Sasuke Kurian, who takes the number 7 spot. She may be an antagonist in the first half of the show, but that does not make her any less of a hero. What makes Sasuke a hero, despite her initial antagonism, is that she secretly worked behind the scenes to bring down the real bad guys, which included her own mother, and harbored a desire to avenge her long-dead father and sister. So Sasuke got to work. She tried to create an academy full of capable warriors, while honing the art of the blade herself. Although her plan failed initially, to kill her mother, I mean, can't blame a girl for trying. Usually stabbing someone through the heart with a sword is enough. But regardless, she is still a hero in my eyes. She repeatedly puts herself in harm's way, trying to stop her mother and her plans to save the world. Her willpower is also immense too. After all, she had to put up with attempted brainwashing and abusive behavior for years, never truly bending or breaking to her mother's will. Through all that hard work and determination, she greatly assisted in helping save the world. In fact, if it weren't for her, the world most likely would have been doomed. With all the hardships he had to go through, it was great seeing Sasuke get a semi-happy ending with a newly acquired baby sis. So great job, girl, on saving the world and landing yourself in the number 7 spot. Now time for more valiance. We're not leaving the world of anime just yet. Now we're going from the killing of the kills to the slaying of demons. This time though, the main character does indeed take the base, for Tanjiro Komeda takes the number 6 spot. While I'm not quite caught up with Demon Slayer yet, Tanjiro is definitely my new favorite shonen protagonist. After losing his entire family in a demon attack, and seeing his sister Nezuko turn into one, Tanjiro works to become a demon slayer, slaying demons, kicking butt, with a seemingly impossible quest of turning Nezuko back into a human. Even with all this tragedy in his life, he still keeps his good nature, never truly giving in to despair. He is definitely a fighter in this cruel, cruel world of Demon Slayer. But I think what I like about Tanjiro the best is that while he does have his own goal of saving Nezuko, he will always take his training seriously and will always step in to help others with kindness and empathy that might be on the level of a saint. So when he really gets mad, he really gets pissed at all the demons who have hurt others, slicing and dicing his way to victory, following a simple yet easy to understand morality system. If someone has become a demon and hasn't killed anyone yet, then Tanjiro will try to help that person in any way he can. But if a demon is an irredeemable monster who will continue to keep killing and making people suffer no matter what he does, then Tanjiro will definitely throw hands to take them out, understanding that these creatures cannot continue to exist. What I also like about Tanjiro is that he's very logical. Even though he occasionally charges in on adrenaline alone, most of the time though he thinks on his feet about how to defeat any variety of demon. He also is very earnest about his training, never once complaining, on his quest to get stronger to deal with more difficult demons. even naturally solving his own problems, like combining 2 different techniques so that his body didn't give out. Tanjiro all around is a very wonderful protagonist. I'm excited to see where his journey goes next, and he is one awesome shonen hero. Now time to go from the world of demons to the world of superheroes. Next hero! We're going down to the streets of 3 different cities for this one. From the infinite universes of DC comes a man who's been a sidekick to one of their most popular superheroes. So Dick Grayson the Nightwing, the first Robin, on and off again Batman, takes the number 5 spot. Now we're getting more into the higher tier, where Dick Grayson definitely deserves to be. Some of my favorite versions of him come from animated shows and movies, such as Young Justice, where he had to learn how to be on a team that communicates on the regular. I also like Dick Grayson as Nightwing in the DCAU, where he is infinitely more experienced, confident, and suave, as a leader, a teammate, and a friend. When the plot isn't forcing him to be slapped around by one Damian Wayne, I think he's one of the better renditions of a DC character in this particular crop of animated movies. There's also the version from the apex of Teen Titans anime material, the 2003 show. How nostalgic it was to listen to that theme song every time I found a new episode. These are my favorite versions of Dick Grayson, and they all have one key thing in common that puts him high up on this list: tenacity. Even though Richard here is a mere mortal among gods, he will always have the determination to see a mission through. If he screws up, while he does beat himself up a little bit, he will almost always pull back and see if he can find another way, coming up with more strategies to take the bad guys down. Honestly, to me, Dick Grayson seems to be a normal person who just happens to be a superhero, and that's probably why I like him so much. Sure, he's smart, he has great martial arts skill, but he's definitely not overpowered or anything like that. Even so, he will always face down any threat. If he gets beaten down, he gets right back up again. Nightwing definitely doesn't have an evil bone in his body just because it's not in his nature. You'd have to do something truly horrible, or blackmail him to get him to do anything remotely heinous. Plus, there's also what Dick Grayson represents in the Batman mythos, where Bruce Wayne the Batman adopted him, bringing the young boy into his home, in a way saving the young Dick Grayson from a life of bitterness and rage because of what happened to his own parents. And in return, whether as Nightwing or Robin, Dick Grayson will act as a lantern in the night, quietly making sure that Batman doesn't get too lost in the darkness. An unorthodox relationship for sure, but one that has definitely shaped Nightwing into the man and hero he is today. Good job on taking the number 5 spot. Now to go from spandex and Gotham to nightly frills and bows. A hero staying strong in the face of adversity is one of my favorite core values of what makes a true hero. But what about someone who did embody heroism, who simply decided to give up? See, her catch Precure is about 2 girls receiving the calling to become cures, to fight the evil forces of the desert apostles who want to burn the planet, basically. Fast forward many episodes later, it was discovered that Cure Moonlight had been walking around them the entire time, and it turned out to be Cure Marine's older sister's classmate, Yuri Susukage, a quiet and withdrawn girl who is cold to the new Cures. She doesn't think she'd be any use to them at all, since after tragically losing her fairy and having her transformation items broken, she could no longer become a pretty Cure. This completely broke a once confident Yuri, becoming incredibly depressed, not really living, only going through the motions of life. So no wonder she didn't want to help. Though when push comes to shove, Yuri is a good person, as when one of the Desert Apostles appears to take Yuri down once and for all, her successors stay behind to fend the Apostle off. Also that she could speak to her fairy partner one last time. It's a magic tree thing, don't worry about it. After the heart-to-heart with Clone, Yuri was finally able to have the burden on her heart lifted. From her plea to the heart tree, Yuri was able to become a Cure once more, transforming from a half-broken seed in glorious fashion in order to take on the Desert Apostle threatening her, learning the value of friendship and camaraderie, now knowing she isn't alone in this fight anymore. I know Precure is kind of a mixed bag as a franchise, since each installment is by a different creative team, and the target demographic is mainly preteen girls, but Yuri is definitely a fantastically written character. someone who experienced failure, wallowing in her worst moments. But with a little bit of coaxing, she was able to rise up again, becoming the hero that she always was inside. Fighting as Cure Moonlight once more. This purple Cure totally deserves to be in the number 4 spot. Cure might be my favorite Precure season, but Yuri is definitely my favorite Cure. Now, it is time to go from a world of flower magic to a world of mechanical life forms. Next hero! First of the top 3 coming right up. You know, I freely admit I am a filthy Transformers casual. In terms of movies, I've only ever seen the Bayformers ones. I've never read any of the comics, and I haven't seen a Transformers animated show predating 2010. However, that does not stop me from putting its arguably flagship character on the top 3. So Optimus Prime takes the number 3 spot. Despite only having seen a few versions of him in the vast sea of 40 plus years of Transformers, I think Optimus Prime definitely embodies what it means to be a hero very well. In the seemingly never-ending war of Autobots versus Decepticons, rising up to become a hero, finding the strength to persevere through trying times. What with a dying world and all, brother turning against brother, fighting each other tooth and nail for domination. But unlike his nemesis Megatron, Optimus doesn't put himself above the other Autobots. He may be their leader, but he'll run and gun like the rest of them, and he will always put the needs of the many over the needs of the few. Although his wish is to see a peaceful Cybertron with his friends one day, Optimus, without hesitation, would still lay down his life to get closer to the future for all of them, such as in the Transformers 2007 movie, where Optimus Prime told the main character, Sam Witwicky, to put this all-powerful cube in his chest that had a very high probability of killing him, so that Megatron couldn't use it for more dastardly deeds. Or how about in Transformers Prime, where he used the Matrix of Leadership to avoid the Autobots a very slim chance at survival. He wasn't even entirely sure what sacrificing the Matrix of Leadership would do to him. Optimus kinda probably thought he would just drop dead. There have been times where Optimus Prime has actually died. For the Autobots, for Cybertron, for peace. There is definitely an aspirational quality to it. A character having a cause that they would die for because they believe in it that much. So yeah, even though I'm not well versed in Transformers, that doesn't stop me from putting Optimus Prime at number 3. I probably should watch more Transformers sometime, but that's for a different time. Now it's time to go from the world of metal men to the world of fairies, witches, and specialists. Now we're in the finals of this whole gosh darn list. These last 2 heroes haven't moved from their spots in quite a long time. I have absolutely no idea if they will ever budge from the top 2, so let's get into it. Anyone else have a show that they thought as a kid was Shakespeare? Like you thought it was so amazing, so peak, that nothing could ever top it? For me, that show was Winx Club, about a bunch of fairies who go to Althea College to learn magic and stuff, getting into romances, solving mysteries, and battling dark forces. Yep, this was definitely my go-to weekly watch as a kid. Whenever I saw that a new episode had come out on Nickelodeon, I didn't think TV could get any better than this. Although as I grew older, my media consumption widened, so I realized Winx Club wasn't quite so perfect as I made it out to be in my head. But that's okay, I still like this glittery, magical show all the same. The first 5 seasons, and World of Winx that is. Somehow the series is still going after wrapping up the story in a nice little bow. It's kinda crazy, the second attempt at a Winx Club reboot is coming out soon. Mixed feelings aside on the long runtime of this show, there's one particular character from Winx Club that has been stuck in my brain for quite a while. She lives rent-free in my head as my second favorite hero of all time. Flora, the Fairy of Nature, takes a number 2 spot. Why do I put my favorite Winx all the way up here? For 2 particular reasons mostly. First off, being the Fairy of Nature, she possesses an almost saintly benevolence towards all nature. Being in tune with nature on a magical level means that she can sense the environment around her, so she can sense something wrong with the way nature is working and try to correct it. She 100% earns her title as the Fairy of Nature. The other reason is, while Flora takes a mostly pacifist route, since she is quite introverted, she will still step up to save the day no matter what forces are trying to ruin it, becoming more confident in herself as the series progresses. And that goes for her relationships too, learning to open up and say what's on her mind. That definitely comes with a caveat though, as when her patience is tested and she's peeved off, all of nature is gonna be coming for the bad guys who pissed her off. Regardless, she's a wonderful character, a shining beacon of goodness and heroism. So much so that I noticed this in World of Winx, where in Season 2 the Winx were going up against a villain who was creating nemeses for them to fight that were trying to capitalize on their negative traits or their greatest fears, which was definitely a real pain in the butt for the Winx, but not for Flora, because the villain couldn't think of anything to screw with Flora psychologically. She legit was just throwing spaghetti at the wall, seeing if something would stick, trying to counteract Flora's fairy powers. It was a plan on a whim because, well, newsflash to the villainess, ambushing her on the mountains won't work because snowy mountains still have nature in them. Flora, the fairy of nature, can still use her powers just fine. So yeah, I find it ironically funny that Flora is so pure, so benevolent, that a villain couldn't figure out a proper way to psychologically torment her. So even though I have mixed feelings about where this show is going and where it went in the past, Flora is still a beloved character in my heart, and Flora is someone who I'd aspire to be in my own life. With her patience, kindness, and elegance, Flora definitely deserves to be here at number 2. Now it's time to go from fairy power to the honorable mention. I was between 11 heroes for this list, so I do have a single honorable mention here from a franchise known far and wide, Power Rangers. Now, I wasn't a 90s kid, I was quite a few years off from existing, so I never saw the 90s or early 2000s seasons of Power Rangers. I kept up with this franchise from the late 2000s all the way to the late 2010s. One of the seasons I remember most from watching Power Rangers, aside from my favorite season of the bunch, Jungle Fury, was Power Rangers Samurai. What can I say? I like the cut of their jib. The outfits, the weapons, the concept, the hook. It was all extremely cool to me, seeing the cast transform into Samurai Rangers to beat down demonic forces. And thus, the Samurai seasons happened to contain my favorite Ranger, Antonio Garcia, the Gold Ranger. For one very particular reason, he became a ranger all on his lonesome. He wasn't chosen by some divine being, nor an inheritor of a great will. Antonio was just an ordinary kid who was gifted an Octozord by the future Red Ranger. So through sheer willpower and determination fueled by a childhood promise, Antonio was able to build his own morpher, figure out how to use the Octozord, and make his own weapon for it, and learning how to fight without any assistance. So he definitely had the aspirations, the technical know-how, and developed the fighting prowess, desiring to become a heroic samurai that badly. However, at first, Antonio was a little showboaty, being flashy and bombastic, trying to prove he could handle any enemy that was thrown his way all by himself. He did learn about being a part of a team though. He grew out of that, becoming an amazing ranger in his own right, which is why he's here as the honorable mention. Now time for numero uno. Now here we are at the summit of this top 10 list. Longtime viewers may already know who my number 1 hero is. After all, whenever the topic of superheroes and relatability comes up, I always have to talk about him, because I just love him as a superhero that much. So taking the number 1 spot by a landslide is Wolverine from Marvel Comics. Is he quite possibly very overrated? Yes, but I don't care, because I love him anyways. In fact, I'm pretty sure Wolverine was the first superhero I was a fan of. Like, I remember catching reruns of X-Men Evolution and new episodes of Wolverine the X-Men in the late 2000s, which led me to check out the Fox X-Men movies. In every version of the X-Men I watched, Wolverine was just that one constant I always loved. A grizzled tough guy who took no cred from anybody, haunted by the demons of his past, trying to make it in a world that's mainly against him, having his various lives ripped away from him because of things outside his control. This really resonated a lot with me as a kid, and continues to be somewhat relatable to me as an adult. Nothing as extreme as getting my memory wiped or being experimented on by the military, but in the days of my youth, my family was going through a series of divorces and remarriages, being pulled every which way in arguments and fights, not getting what I wanted out of life, or rather thinking that I wasn't good enough to keep my family together. So I either acted out in an incredibly spiteful manner or just shut myself down. There was no in between. So as strange as it sounds, I looked to Wolverine as a source of inspiration. Brain scrambled, lives destroyed, memory wiped, and yet he's still here, fighting on, trying to pick up the pieces, rebuild something new. And I thought to myself, hey, I can do that too. So there's that aspirational and relatability aspect for me. Yeah, preteen to teenage girl surrounded by Monster High and Winx Club. was watching the superhero escapades of a buff hairy Canadian man with razors coming out of his hands, and going, that's literally me. Also, Wolverine is a fantastic character in his own right. Personally, I think this guy has one of the best track records for a superhero receiving adaptations. Off the top of my head, in terms of animated stuff, there was X-Men Evolution and Wolverine the X-Men. And although I found the story a bit boring, I did like how he was portrayed in the Madhouse X-Men anime, where his hair for some reason just has a mind of its own. There was also Hulk vs. Wolverine. I thought he was great in that too. And obviously on the live action side of things, Hugh Jackman definitely gave a fantastic performance as Wolverine. The Fox X-Men movies were sometimes hit or miss. Wolverine was definitely one of the best highlights. Now I could go on for several hours about what I like from Wolverine, all his different versions, you know, what's my favorite moments, but I'll just boil it down to one simple thing that I believe to be at the core of his character, where at the crux of who he is, Logan gets up in the morning, looks in the mirror, and goes, I don't think I'm a good person, but I will try to be. Doing the best he can with what he's got. Picking up the broken pieces of the lives he's lost and putting it back together again in something new. So that's probably why, now and for the rest of my life, Wolverine is my favorite superhero. The character just means that much to me. This hereby concludes this special. Thanks for making it to the end of this video. I would love to hear what your favorite heroes are in the comment section down below. It's time for me to prepare my 900 sub special. So with that, Bright Kitty is signing out.